Good morning, my friend, or maybe good afternoon, depending on when this finds you. I want to start with something very ordinary because ordinary things shape our lives more than we realize. For so many people, the day begins on defense. The alarm goes off, and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already answering emails, replaying yesterday, worrying about money, thinking about your body, your family, the schedule, the traffic, the pressure. It is reaction before intention. It is survival before presence. And honestly, I get it. Life asks a lot of us. Sometimes it feels like we wake up already behind. I mean, some mornings the brain starts talking before the eyes are even fully open. But that pattern matters because if the first thing we practice each day is stress, urgency, and mental scattering, then that becomes the emotional posture we carry into everything else. Now contrast that with a different kind of morning. Not a perfect one, not some picture on social media with candles and flawless sunlight and nobody needing anything from you. I mean a real morning in a real life, where before the world gets your attention, you take a few intentional minutes to reclaim your own state. You breathe on purpose. You direct your focus. You remember what matters. You choose your emotional footing before the day tries to choose it for you. That, to me, is agency. It is not controlling every circumstance. We cannot do that. It is choosing who we are going to be inside the circumstance. And one practice that has helped many people do exactly that is Tony Robbins' priming. If you have heard of it, think of today as a gentle refresher. If you have not, this is a very simple introduction. Priming is often described as about 10 minutes, a short reset, a way to shift your state, your focus, and your emotional direction before the day gets moving. It is not magic, and it is not about pretending life is easy. It is about interrupting the automatic stress loop and creating a more resourceful inner environment. When your state changes, your perception changes. When your perception changes, your choices often do too. So in this episode, I want to walk with you through what priming is, why it can work so powerfully, and how each phase builds on the next. Think of this as less of a lecture and more of an invitation, a way to begin the day not clenched, not scattered, not bracing for impact, but awake, grounded, and deliberate. Let's talk about why a short practice like this can feel so different from simply thinking positive thoughts. Because priming is not only mental, it begins with physiology, and that matters more than most people realize. We often assume emotion starts in the mind alone, but the body is involved in every feeling we have. Breath changes state, posture changes state, movement changes state. If your shoulders are collapsed, your breathing is shallow, and your nervous system is already preparing for threat, then your mind will usually go looking for more reasons to stay tense. It is almost like the body casts a vote first, and then the mind gathers evidence to support it. So when a practice uses strong breathing, upright posture, and intentional physical engagement, it can interrupt that pattern. More oxygen, more energy, more alertness. Not in a frantic way, but in a wake up the system kind of way. It shifts you from passive drift into active presence. And sometimes that is the doorway we need. We do not always think our way out of stress first. Sometimes we breathe our way into enough space to think clearly again. Then comes gratitude and intention. And these are not just sweet little add-ons. They change attention. When you move into genuine gratitude, even briefly, you are disrupting the chemistry of fear and pressure. You are telling the brain and body, for this moment, I am not only threatened, I am also connected. I am resourced. I am alive to what is good. That shift can soften the grip of stress and create room for steadiness. The intention piece matters too, because the mind is always scanning. It is looking for what to notice, what to prioritize, what story to build. If you enter the day with no conscious direction, your focus can get hijacked by whatever feels loudest or most urgent. But if you set intention, even simply, you begin to guide that filter. You start telling the mind, this is what matters today. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to show up. I often think of priming like tuning an instrument before a performance. You can absolutely walk onto the stage untuned. People do it every day. But then everything requires more effort, and even small things feel off. Priming is that quiet moment before the music starts. You align breath, body, heart, and focus so that when the world asks something of you, you are more ready to meet it. Not perfect, not invincible, just more ready. And in real life, that can change a lot. So let me walk through the first two phases in a very practical way. Phase 1 is the breathing practice, and this is the energizing physical interrupt. This is where you break the stale, sleepy, stressed pattern and wake up the system on purpose. In Tony Robbins' priming, the breathing is active and rhythmic. The exact timing can vary depending on how someone learned it, so I do not want to be overly rigid here, but the essence is this. You breathe powerfully, with intention, and you often coordinate that breath with movement of the arms. The point is not to perform it perfectly. The point is to create a strong physiological shift. You are engaging the body so the mind cannot just keep looping in the same old groove. It is almost like saying to your whole system, wake up, we are not doing autopilot right now. We are here, we are alive, we are participating. And yes, if you are new to it, it can feel a little awkward at first. That's okay. Awkward is still better than unconscious, in my opinion. Then phase 2 moves into something softer, but incredibly powerful, heart-centered gratitude. And I love this part because it takes gratitude out of the abstract. Instead of saying, I am grateful for everything, which can be nice but vague, you focus on 3 small sensory memories, tiny moments you can actually feel. Maybe it is the warmth of sunlight on your face through a kitchen window. Maybe it is a grandchild's hand in yours. Maybe it is the smell of coffee early in the morning, or a dog resting its head against your leg, or hearing a loved one laugh from the other room. Small things, real things, felt things. Why does that matter? Because the body responds more deeply to what is emotionally vivid. When you bring in sensory detail, gratitude becomes an experience instead of an idea. You are not reciting a list. You are re-entering a moment of goodness. And as you do that, the heart softens, the breath often steadies, and the mind begins to reorient. That is a subtle but important shift. What we rehearse, we strengthen. So if the first emotional rehearsal of the day is appreciation, connection, and presence, then the mind starts scanning differently. It begins to look for more of what aligns with that state. Not because problems disappear, but because your inner lens is no longer locked only on threat. And really, that is one of the great gifts of this phase. Gratitude trains attention. It gently teaches the mind what else is true. Now we move into phases 3 and 4, and this is where priming becomes both deeply inward and beautifully outward. Phase 3 is often described as a kind of visualization involving healing light, grounding, and connection. You might imagine light moving through the body, filling you, strengthening you, bringing healing energy where you need it. Some people picture it pouring in from above. Some imagine it radiating from within. The imagery can be personal. The key is the felt sense of renewal, support, and alignment. You are not just breathing and remembering gratitude now. You are also allowing yourself to experience connection to something larger than fear. I think that grounding piece is so important because when we are stressed, we can feel fragmented, almost untethered. But when we slow down and imagine ourselves supported, connected, held in strength, something settles. We remember we are not only carrying life, we are also being carried through it. Then there is this beautiful extension outward. You do not keep that energy locked inside yourself. You send strength, compassion, blessing, whatever language feels right to you, outward to others, to your family, to people you love, maybe to someone struggling, maybe even to humanity more broadly. There is something powerful in that movement from self-contraction into contribution. It reminds us that love expands us. Compassion expands us, and when the heart expands, fear tends to loosen its grip a little. Phase 4 brings in the visualization of 3 desired outcomes as already achieved. Again, not as fantasy for fantasy's sake, but as intentional focus. You picture what you want to create or experience: a conversation going well, a project completed, a healing step taken, a calm response in a difficult moment. You see it as done. You feel the emotional quality of that outcome: relief, joy, confidence, peace, gratitude. This matters because the mind responds to vivid rehearsal. If all we mentally rehearse is what might go wrong, then we strengthen stress pathways. But if we also rehearse what aligned success looks like, what grounded action feels like, what loving leadership sounds like, we are building familiarity with that state too. And I want to be careful here. This is not denial. It is not pretending every outcome is guaranteed. It is choosing to orient yourself toward possibility with emotional conviction. You are saying, "This is where I am aiming my energy. This is the version of me I am practicing before the day begins." That is a very different way to enter a morning than fear based prediction. It is grounded hope, directed attention, and compassionate strength. So, what happens when someone practices this regularly? Do the outer problems vanish? No. Bills may still be there. A health concern may still need attention. Family dynamics may still be complicated. Work can still be work. Traffic still exists. The human condition does not disappear because you took 10 intentional minutes in the morning. But the inner state changes, and that changes a great deal. The same problem met from panic feels different than when met from steadiness. The same difficult conversation feels different when your nervous system is less activated. The same temptation, distraction, or emotional trigger often lands differently when you have already anchored yourself in breath, gratitude, connection, and intention. That is the ripple effect. You are more likely to make better choices because you are not operating from the smallest, most reactive version of yourself. You may pause before saying the sharp thing. You may choose the nourishing meal instead of the stress driven one. You may listen more carefully. You may recover faster from disappointment. You may remember what matters before getting swept away by what screams the loudest. And to me, that connects beautifully to health. Not just physical health, though stress absolutely touches the body. I mean whole person health, the kind that includes peace, resilience, self respect, and emotional steadiness. When your internal state is less chaotic, you often have more energy for wise action, more capacity for consistency, more patience with the process. It also supports personal leadership. And I do not mean leadership only in the formal sense. I mean how you lead your own life, how you lead the emotional climate in your home, how you show up for aging parents, children, partners, friends, clients, community. Every one of us is broadcasting something. Either we spread agitation or we spread presence. Either we pass on panic or we model groundedness. Priming can help us become more deliberate about what we are carrying into the world. Not because we become emotionless, and certainly not because we stop having hard days, but because we build a practice of returning to breath, returning to gratitude, returning to service, returning to a vision bigger than the immediate stressor. That is why a short morning ritual can reach so far into the rest of the day. It does not change everything all at once. It changes the one thing from which everything else is interpreted, your state. And from there, healthier choices, steadier emotions, and more peaceful leadership become much more available. So let me close with a very gentle invitation. If this practice speaks to you, do not treat it like one more task to fail at. Please do not turn 10 minutes into another reason to judge yourself. Think of it instead as a gift, a daily offering to your mind, your body, your heart, and honestly, to everyone who will encounter you that day. 10 minutes is not nothing. I know that. Life can be full, noisy, demanding, but 10 minutes can also be sacred. It can be the difference between beginning the day scattered and beginning it centered. It can be the difference between carrying yesterday's residue and consciously choosing today's energy. And if you miss a day, you are human. Just begin again. If your mind wanders, that is normal. Begin again. If the gratitude feels faint one morning, if the visualization feels clumsy, if the breathing feels awkward, begin again. This is a practice, not a performance. The deeper message underneath all of this is one I really want you to hold on to. State is something we can shape, not control perfectly, not force every minute, but shape. We do have influence over how we meet the day. We can interrupt old patterns. We can condition new emotional pathways. We can train ourselves toward greater presence, strength, and compassion. And that matters. Because when we arise with intention instead of reacting by default, we become better stewards of our health, our peace, and our relationships. We become more trustworthy to ourselves, more available to others, more aligned with the life we say we want to live. So maybe tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the headlines, before the to-do list starts making demands, you give yourself those 10 minutes. Breathe deeply. Remember what is good. Feel connected. Send love outward. See the day going well. Let your nervous system learn a new opening. And then rise. Not in fear, not in haste, but in intention. Thank you for spending this time with me. I am so glad you are here, and we'll keep walking through practices like this together in future episodes.